We have a growing police state in this country, and the police state is going after all people, whether you're black, white, or whatever. All people can be victims of the police state. So now I want to talk about your shirt there. Can you show your shirt on the camera? It's a little Black Guns Matter. Now, can you tell the story behind this shirt?
So Black Guns Matter is an organization run by a guy named Maj Toure out of Philly. And what it is it's a Second Amendment gun rights organization specifically aimed at urban communities or urban youth, because I know it's the dreaded C word again, but in some of these cultures, in some of these areas where there is a lot of crime, these communities have a different view of gun ownership than maybe you or I do, or people in urban areas, and because they associate it with gangs and they associate it with violence and they don't associate it with defense. And that's what this organization is trying to do, is trying to teach gun safety, gun rights, and all of that. And in my conversations with black people, and well, not all black people, you know what I mean, but in different black people, is that they say, oh, well, the Constitution was written by white people and it wasn't written for us. And that's a really toxic mindset, because first of all, it has nothing to do with the Constitution, it has to do with the right to property ownership. But and
your right to defend yourself, your body.
Right, and that's why it's a toxic thing, and that's what this guy is trying to aim. There is different cultures, there is different views that arise out of those different cultures, and they demand that things be addressed in different ways. And somebody from that culture can address those things much better than somebody who is not.
So you're kind of almost using like intellectual judo, kind of like with the Black Guns Matter, because like there's Black Lives Matter. And a lot of people have criticized Black Lives Matter because they've kind of gone off in this kind of Marxist direction, and they've gotten money from George Soros and the Ford Foundation. And do you think that these people like George Soros and etc., that they're almost they're trying to basically take what is a real concern about the police state and in this country, which is affecting everybody? And they're trying to turn it into a racial issue where it's only black people that are being targeted by the police.
And the effect that has is by making it a racial issue, they're trying to propagate cultural Marxism.
Yeah.
That's what it's really about.
Yeah.
And usurping the core issue. So like you said, they're taking it from a power issue and turning it into a race issue, because that's a lot more emotionally engaging. And if you can whip people up in their emotions and get them to start reacting instead of thinking, then you can effectively control them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what's happening.
And see, there's a lot of black people that I know that are associates or friends of mine, and they're very concerned about the growing police state thing.
They should be.
And but it's and some of them that I know that it's not just affecting black people, it's affecting everybody, this police state. But it just seems like Black Lives Matter is kind of almost like they took something that could have been a good thing, and it's kind of been veered off in a negative direction.
Well, they picked so like I mentioned earlier, there is racially disparate outcomes as far as the police state issue, and the reason for that is complicated. They take this complicated issue and make it racism.
Yeah.
Very simple, very easy, very emotional. Boom, you're whipped up in emotions, you're not thinking, you're reacting because I'm a victim, you're racist. That's not reality on what is causing the issue. No one's denying that there is a racially disparate racially disparate outcome when it comes to the police brutality thing. But the question is why, and there's black economists like Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams that have tackled these issues, and what they found is that essentially, if you cut off the free market, then you are going to incentivize other forms of making money. You know what I mean? So if you increase the minimum wage, you increase regulation to start a business, and cut off the lowest rung from accessing that, they're either going to resort to crime or the welfare state. And if you're incentivizing crime, you're incentivizing a higher police presence. That's the connection.
Now, this leads me to another issue, and this is another one of my big issues, and I've long advocated that libertarians should promote some action items that people can implement in their real day-to-day lives that don't require libertarians to get elected. But libertarians can promote these things, and just promoting them and getting these messages out to the public could move society towards more freedom without, even if libertarians don't get elected. And the first on that list is jury nullification.
Jury nullification, gun ownership, cryptocurrency, and in fact, that exactly what you're saying is this isn't just some small thing. This guy is blowing up. He's going on tour across the country to cities all over the place. He's in mainstream media. I mean, this is really blowing up, and it's on that message that this is a self-empowerment thing. So that's very powerful. You know what I mean? And fundamentally, we're against government ideologically. And if we ignore these kinds of things like jury nullification and all that, we're selling the message short. We're selling the solution short by focusing more on the politics and the electorate, the votes and all that kind of stuff.
Now, do you think that the National Libertarian Party should promote jury nullification? Because I've been trying to get the National Libertarian Party to do this.
Absolutely.
And nobody's done anything, not a peep. I was actually at the National Convention.
I would take it a step further. I don't understand why not only should they be promoting jury nullification, they should be
of victimless crimes.
Of victimless crimes. They should be partnered with Fully Informed Jury Association, FIJA, to be creating a platform for this, to first of all use them to recruit libertarians, and then use libertarians to go back into them and take action. And that's our tagline: take human action. But they should be doing this all across the board. Why are we not partnered with the 10th Amendment Center to put forward nullification legislation from the state nullifying the feds? You know what I mean? Why are we not doing that? I don't know, but we should.
Yeah, and another big issue that ties into this is cryptocurrency. The growth of cryptocurrency is something that can really expand human freedom in terms of financial privacy and not having your money devalued by the Federal Reserve System. And do you think that the Libertarian Party has done enough? I mean, I'm actually the one who actually pushed the idea and got the Libertarian Party to start accepting donations in Bitcoin a few years ago. And there were people on the National Committee at the time that were very skeptical about it. Fortunately, we got it passed and it's been working out. But it seems to me that the Libertarian Party hasn't really done that much to embrace the cryptocurrency community. And a lot of people who are into cryptocurrency are either libertarian or libertarian leaning. Now, of course, not all of them, but a pretty good percentage of them. And, you know, with cryptocurrency market getting bigger and bigger and bigger, there's a lot of people out there who are getting rich, and you know, because some people are becoming. We could see basically a whole new class of millionaires and billionaires emerging. Is already emerging.
We already are
from cryptocurrency, and a lot of these people are libertarian leaning. And it seems to me the Libertarian Party isn't doing much to reach out to these people, if anything.
And I think it's a huge failure and a huge mistake. I really think cryptocurrency is one of the most important things moving forward. What people don't realize is how widespread it is. They think of cryptocurrency, well, first of all, most people don't even know the word cryptocurrency. They just think of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just one application of the blockchain technology. So essentially what this application of the blockchain technology has taken financial and banking services and commerce and turned it into an app on your phone, so that it eliminates the third party and you are fully in control. And it essentially applies the Uber model to those systems of commerce and banking. It's not just money. That's the thing that people need to realize. There's cryptocurrencies that this decentralization model is coming to everywhere. It's threatening the internet service provider cartel, the phone data service cartel, the internet provider shipping. It's everywhere, and the only thing in our society that's not decentralizing now is the government. The market is choosing decentralization right before our eyes, and big time. And in addition to that, young people are primarily attracted to libertarianism. There's studies coming out showing that 30-40% of millennials would rather invest in cryptocurrency than stocks. That connection is there, and we are missing out on capitalizing on it. And not only that, but there's a lot of money being generated, like you said, so it could solve some of our financial problems. And we all know that as an emergent market, increased regulation and stuff like that is on the horizon. Well, they're not going to get the offer of fighting for their right to not be taxed, not be regulated, not be information gathered from the Republicans and Democrats, so it's a natural fit. I can't imagine why they're not doing it.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve System already has the Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
Libertarians should be the party of cryptocurrency.
I don't want to diss gold. I would say
gold and silver.
The term I've started using is market-based money. market-based money.
Yeah. And so, for years, libertarians have had a hard time competing because we don't have the same campaign funds that Democrats and Republicans do. But with the cryptocurrency market exploding like it is, it could put libertarians in a position where the Libertarian Party will be more able to compete against Democrats and Republicans. So is the Mises Caucus planning to reach out to the cryptocurrency community and bring them into the Libertarian Party?
Already started.
That's fantastic. Okay, now there's been a controversy recently about Ron Paul and Andrew Napolitano coming to speak at the Libertarian National Convention, and some people have some people have made some accusations about yourself and the Mises Caucus. And can you tell us what's going on with that? What's your side of the story? I mean, just give us a little recap on that.
So what happened here was I started talking to Daniel Heise, who is a member of the LNC, and he's also the chair of the convention committee. And I told him that I was interested in getting some speakers. This started back in October. That I was interested in getting some speakers to the convention. And the first one that I did and successfully got on there, he will be speaking at the convention, is Jim Cantrell. This is part of my crypto outreach. Jim Cantrell is the co-founder of SpaceX. He is the CEO of a company called Vector Space Systems, which is partnered with the Nexus cryptocurrency to shoot up an array of satellites into low Earth orbit to beam free and decentralized internet down, and also have the satellite array act as an added layer of security for the crypto network. So they were obviously very excited to get the speaker. I'm excited that he's going to be speaking there. Everyone should buy a ticket and hear what is coming, because it's amazing. So we established a working relationship off of that. So I pitched the idea of, well, what about Ron Paul and Judge Napolitano? And Hayes was about it at first, but there's the hurdle of they have speaking fees and they're rather large. So this is in October.
Oh, just as a side note, that's very common for people to have speaking fee. This is a very common problem. It's not just with Ron Paul and Andrew Napolitano.
Well, what it is, I mean, if you don't have that wall there to dissuade people who aren't serious about
everybody's going to ask you.
Yeah, and what 83-year-old needs that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So we established this working relationship, and he was about it at first. Now, this was in October. The Mises Caucus only started in September. So it was an idea at this point. We didn't have a clear pathway to make it happen, but there was potential because of my interaction with them at the Nexus conference, as well as later the Mises 35th anniversary event. I talked to both of them. There was interest in our goals and what the caucus was trying to do, and I got contact information, and so the potential was there, and I knew people who might be interested in being sponsors. So didn't have a clear pathway, but the potential was there. Fast forward to December, and I had started putting it together. I'd been in contact with the rep for Ron Paul and Judge Nap, and Ron Paul wrote an article for the Ron Paul Liberty Report, and in this article, he did what Ron Paul does. He told people some truth that they don't want to hear, and that is that the party was essentially, I mean, he's the most congenial guy on the planet, right? So it's worded pretty nicely, but essentially it's that the party was weak on principle last year, and they decided to try to win instead of stand for something, and got neither, and that's true. That is true. And he basically said that if the party wants to be successful, it's going to have to be reformed and coalesce back around the principles. And that's the goal of the Mises Caucus. Well, this seemed to have outraged Mr. Hayes. And so...
No, it's just some constructive criticism, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And now they're saying that he's talking shit, he's attacking them, and all this is totally, leftist SJW tactics, frankly.
Yeah.
And so at this point in December, pathway was there, and he says this, and it essentially shuts it down. And I didn't really respond to it. I kind of was just like, that's kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool off. He's mad or upset. I'm going to let this cool off, and I'm going to try to pursue avenues to try to talk to Ron Paul directly. And the reason I felt that was important was because I felt that the success that I was having getting Judge Napolitano's support was because I was able to have a face-to-face conversation with him at the Nexus conference. So I tried to utilize some avenues, and essentially I came full circle back to talking with the rep, trying to utilize these resources to get into Ron Paul, and they directed me back to the rep ultimately. this was a process of about 6 weeks. And that's about the time between he originally said no Ron Paul, and I got back in touch with the rep again. And so at this point, it was like, all right, well, we've gone full circle. It's been 6 weeks or so. I'm going to try again. Hopefully it cooled off. So, I was at a point where in the process I had 2 tasks that I needed to do. The rep needed me to talk to Heise and find out specific information for what day and time that Ron and Judge would be speaking at the convention. And then I also had to go to the sponsors who said that they would be willing to help and coordinate that with the rep and get it paid for and all that stuff. Well, considering that Heise had already said no Ron Paul, I don't want to waste the sponsors' time. So I figured I'd go solve that one first and figure that out. So that's what I did. And he saw my messages and didn't answer me. Then he just started straight up ignoring me. So I just said, okay, I'll just tell the rep that you're not interested. And he gave me a thumbs up. That's what happened. And so I thought that was outrageous. I mean, he really held a grudge. That's what the whole point of the cooling down period was. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like and he really did hold a grudge. So damn right I made a story about it. What friggin' self-described libertarian is going to reject Ron Paul and Judge Knapp for free?
Yeah, they're two of the biggest named libertarians, probably the 2 biggest named libertarians in the country.
And not to mention, it works against his own interests. He has a vested interest in selling tickets. Mm-hmm. So it really does, it really is a grudge. And it's not even about Ron Paul. That's what people need to understand. It's not about Ron Paul. It's nothing personal to Ron Paul. What it is they know. So in October, Mises Caucus was just starting. Mm-hmm. Come towards December, we've got candidates, we've got state level teams, we've got coverage, we've got delegates, we've got all this stuff. They know that. They know our goals. They know that it's primarily Ron Paul supporters and people from that sphere of libertarianism, like the Tom Woods Show, like the Mises Institute, and stuff like that. They know our goals are a shakeup of the leadership. So they knew what Ron Paul stood for. They know what he represents. They know that him being at the convention would rally our troops and perhaps be a threat to their
So you think this is politically motivated?
Oh, I 100% think so. Yeah.
So there's people who are afraid they're going to lose their seats if a bunch of Ron Paul supporters and Andrew Napolitano supporters show up at the convention.
100%.
Now, wasn't there something that this guy said about we'll have Kennedy, MTV's, or used to be on MTV, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he was throwing...
Kennedy Monk. I mean, she would be okay, but certainly not nearly as interesting as Ron Paul or Andrew Napolitano. And then he said Glenn Beck of all.
Yeah, I mean... I
don't even think Glenn Beck's a legitimate libertarian. I mean, the guy's a phony, in my opinion.
Right, and he's a conservative. And it's just so... It boggles my mind, because part of the attack strategy is, Ron Paul's a Republican. Well, so is Bill Weld, and he's a neoconservative.
Well, he's also a life member of the Libertarian Party. And in fact, I think Ron Paul actually quit the Republican Party after the 2012 Republican convention when they screwed him and his delegates at the convention.
Right.
And he actually quit and he never revoked his life membership of the Libertarian Party. Right. And in 2016, the Libertarian Party gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he did a video address to the conference, and his video address got a standing ovation. And Ron Paul, said that, hey, people should keep principle in mind, when they do their voting at the convention. Of course, I think a little over half the delegates ignored that. But anyway, what I'm saying is Ron Paul has a long history with libertarians and the Libertarian Party.
Yes. Yeah, and because it's principle-based, he is a libertarian. He promoted libertarian principles. That's going to naturally lead people to find and check out the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
So I would say they're directly linked. And if you're going to attack, well, first of all, it's completely shallow. Like if you're gonna attack Ron Paul, at least attack him on his ideas or his body of work or something like that. Don't attack him for the letter next to his name. And if you're going to do it, be consistent. You have to rule out Glenn Beck. Then you have to rule out Judge Napolitano, not Judge Napolitano. Sorry, you have to rule out Bill Weld. You have to rule out Gary Johnson. You have to rule out all these guys. But they're not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet you that Bill Weld will be on that stage.
Yeah.
From the Council on Foreign Relations, and so it does definitely seem to me to be politically motivated, and to back that up, now you have people making completely bullcrap claims. So they're acting like politicians, and that's a big part of the distinction that we as the Mises Caucus want to make is we want activists. We don't want politicians. We want activists. And these people are acting like these people are acting like politicians, putting out so. I put screenshots in my article, right, from him denying Ron Paul. And there's no arguing that. I mean, it's objective. He says right there, Ron Paul is not, Ron Paul is out. He doesn't know what the LP represents. So then he went and released, that was in December. He went and released screenshots from October where he was in support of it and said, oh, well, see, I wasn't against it. Well, it's actually worse. He set me up for failure. Like, he said, go for it. I went for it, made significant progress, and then he stonewalled me. You know what I mean? So that's like much worse.
So where does it stand right now, though? Are Ron Paul and Andrew Napolitano, and or one or the other or both, going to be able to speak at the 2018 Libertarian National Convention in New Orleans this year?
The conversation for Napolitano seems to have dropped, frankly. But Ron Paul put out a video yesterday that I'm very happy about. And, Ron's not going to come out and say, oh, F the Libertarian Party, F the leadership, take it over, or anything. He's not going to do anything like that. He's the most congenial guy on the planet, But I would say that there was a lot of subtle support in that video. And it seemed to me that he's very open still to being there.
Yeah.
So essentially, where we're at is...
he's not that far from New Orleans in Lake Jackson, Texas, which is near Houston, so it wouldn't be that far from him.
No. And so where we're at now is, this is caused rightly so, a outrage. And they seem to be backing off a little bit and saying, oh, well, if you give something to the convention committee, then, we'll put it to a vote and this or that. And I think they think I'm bluffing. I think they think that I don't have the resources to do it, and I do, and they're going to find that out. And so that's where we're at now. I'm going to have to reopen negotiations with Ron Paul to gain their interest, write up this proposal, and we're going to find out once and for all, because when they did this, they have put on a full-on smear campaign. You've got people who I've never talked to, never approached me, writing articles saying that it's fabricated, that we're alt-right, totally insane.
Yeah.
And these people, they never attack you on ideas, ever, not once. I challenge anybody to find one ideological argument that these people are posing against the Mises Caucus. It doesn't exist. It's all superficial things like we're all right. Well, that's easily refuted by reading our platform.
Yeah.
So they've changed narratives a whole bunch of time. It's, oh, Ron Paul's a Republican. Oh, he was trying to put the party on the hook. Oh, he wasn't trying to put the party, he wanted the party to pay for it. Oh, well, then he wanted them to be on IOUs. And they changed the story so many times because they're lying. They are 100% bold-faced lying, and they're acting like politicians. So they're scrambling to try to react to the anger. So they're settling on, it seems to me that they're settling on that I'm lying, that I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. So I absolutely do, and they're going to have a choice. They're going to have a choice to either cave and let him speak, and I win, or they're going to have to vote no, reveal that it was all bullshit and it was all excuses and they really didn't want him there, and I win. So they're in a corner right now.
Okay. And now, is the Mises Caucus going to have like official candidates running for the Libertarian National Committee?
We have candidates that we endorse and candidates that we support. I don't want to hamstring anybody and have them be Mises Caucus candidates, and if you are a candidate, that it makes sense that you would want to try to get the endorsement of as many caucuses as you can. So I don't want to hamstring anybody that way and make it like they're our candidate. It makes it kind of about us. We want to focus on candidates, so we support candidates.
Okay. Now, some people have thought, because of your past associations, and I guess you're still somewhat associated with Adam Kokesh, that he's part of the Mises Caucus. I mean, is he, or is he just kind of, you're both doing your own thing, but you have some common goals? But he's not really, is he a part of the Mises Caucus?
No.
Okay, no,
he's a friend of the caucus. He doesn't he doesn't promote it. He doesn't post in our group. I would say the kind of activists that he attracts are very similar to the activists that we would attract. And I think what interests the people that he attracts interests the same type of people that we attract. So I think there's a lot of overlap of interests and overlap of goals. And he is a personal friend of mine, but no, he's not part of the caucus.
Now, there was a controversy recently about current Vice Chairman Arvin Vohara. He got into some discussion over age of consent. And, some people think that he went too far with some comments on Facebook, and it blew up into a big controversy, and there was an effort to remove him from the LNC. Now, I believe that removal vote has failed. I haven't actually read every little comment that he said. I haven't followed the entire thing. Now, my opinion, when you're talking about libertarian stuff, you're going to get into some radical discussions,
Right.
and there's certain topics that have been hot button issues even among libertarians for a long time, like abortion, immigration, intellectual property, anarchy versus binarchy. Well, another one of those big controversies is age of consent. Now, I don't, from what I've seen, I don't think Arvin Vohara should have been removed. I mean, I don't think. Now, my opinion on age of consent, 18 is an arbitrary age, okay? But it's kind of hard to say, what the arbitrary age is. I mean, I've met people that are 17 that have more sense than people that are 35, And so, what's your, here's what on age of consent, if we had an anarcho-capitalist society, I could see it handled by covenant communities where, like, if you want to live in this community, you sign a contract and you're going to agree that the age of consent is this, and if you violate the contract, you're going to have penalties and you could be, quote-unquote, physically removed from the community, if you violate the age of consent contract in an anarcho-capitalist society. Now, another thing is there could be vigilante justice, hey man, you went after my 12-year-old daughter, now I'm going to seek payback on you in vigilante, or there could be private courts, and the private courts could try to determine whether or not the child was competent or the person was competent enough to consent to sex. But what is your view on this whole controversy?
I mean, I agree with your sentiments. I think, and
do you think Arvin Vohara went too far with some of his comments?
Well, I think we have to be cognizant of what works and what doesn't, and I think we have to think about our responsibility when we are the face of an organization. So, talk about marketing earlier. Now, some people will want to spin this and say, "Oh, you're talking about watering down the message." Again, I would refer to Ron Paul. Ron Paul was very radical. Ron Paul was very consistent. Ron Paul was basically an anarchist, but he did it in a way that was marketable and attractive to people somehow. We can do both. That is not what Arvin does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that is not what Arvin does. We are losing donors because of it, and that kind of thing does matter. Again, we have to be cognizant of the fact that it is, in fact, a political party, and that is going to require some philosophical concessions. So, I'm okay with him being censored. I'm okay with him being censored.
But do you think he should be removed, or should have been removed?
No, to me it's irrelevant, because we're going to take him out anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's an election coming up, and I don't think anybody should be kind of like on the LNC for life, regardless of who you are. And that kind of reminds me of another thing I've thought of. Okay, if you had a sports team, and the sports team was producing losing seasons, is the coaching staff going to keep their job? Okay, if you have a movie production studio and they're producing box office flops after box office flops, are they going to keep their jobs? If you have a business manager, like restaurant manager, and the restaurant's losing money, are they going to keep their job? No. So shouldn't there be the same thing in the Libertarian Party, that like either get the Libertarian Party ahead, or we need to get new coaches? Because it's kind of like the LNC, the office staffers, at the state level too, the state committee members and stuff, they're like coaches. And we need coaches that can move us forward and produce winning teams. And I don't mean producing winning teams at the expense of principle. I mean having a pretty strong message. And but so do you think that if people are not producing in a management position within the Libertarian Party, that they should be replaced or quote physically removed?
Physically voted out.
Yeah, physically voted out. Yeah,
I do, and I think it's long overdue.
Yeah.
I think it's very long overdue. I think times are changing. We talked about that with the crypto.
Yeah.
And we have to decide what the philosophy of how to run the party or how the campaign is. Are we going to stand on principle and be education-based and stand our ground and hope people will be motivated and come our way? Or are we going to water down, pander, and play politics as usual? That's a decision that needs to be made and followed. It seems to me that that decision has been made, and it's the watered down pandering model, which is not producing results, and it's not producing goodwill, and it's not producing good faith, and it's not producing much good of anything. So I say we need to abandon that, and I don't know why they are so. It's almost to me like they're jealous of Ron Paul for being a Republican or something. Like, they just refuse to learn from that playbook. Do we have to do every single thing or take every single position that Ron said? No, but there's something to learn from that playbook.
And there were people who criticized, there were people who criticized Ron Paul, saying, he's too conservative, you know what I mean? And there were some libertarians that criticized. Now, honestly, I think the things they were criticizing him on was pretty trivial. And also, he was running in the Republican primary. And he took some pretty bold stances, like getting up on stage with a room full of Republicans and advocating to end the war on drugs and the non-interventionist foreign policy. And he had that famous back and forth with Giuliani.
The people that say he's too conservative, I mean, unless he was advocating using government force to enforce that conservatism, it's none of their business. Yeah. They're actually hypocrites, because I thought I thought we were about tolerance.
Yeah, well, one thing is, you have some abortion's an issue that a lot of libertarians are really divided on, and it's one of those hot button issues. And because Ron Paul was pro-life, now his actual political stance was that it should be a state or local issue and not a federal issue. Mm-hmm. But still, he is anti-abortion, and there are some people in the party that are just radical, pro-choice or pro-abortion people, and they just really didn't like that.
Well, there's a distinction to be made. There's a distinction to be made against legally pro-choice, meaning the government doesn't have a right to intrude, and being morally pro-life. And I think that's kind of the distinction that most libertarians would fall under.
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear about something. The caucus itself, like I said, we comprise Austro-libertarians from classical liberals like Mises to anarcho-capitalists like Rothbard. So there are certain things that we are willing to put aside. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a hard stance on borders. We don't have a hard stance on abortion, because what the fuck good does it do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it just causes all these fights, and frankly, those are community issues, those are cultural issues, those are property issues that probably aren't going to be at the top of the things to fall from the status paradigm, from the collective consciousness. So we should focus on what works and what's most important. What's most important, at least in my mind, is the Federal Reserve, the wars, and the war on drugs, and the police state, and the surveillance state, and all these things.
I would add gun rights to that, too.
And gun rights, yeah, absolutely right. And freedom of speech, and all these stuff.
Yeah.
We're not going to privatize the borders anytime soon. We have to make sure we can retain the state level people that we have. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a moot point.
Yeah. So we have people who there are some people in the party
jerking off.
Yeah, there are some people in the party that think it should be a priority issue to rip the borders. Just say anybody come in. And then I'll point out to them, well, we have a welfare state, and like statistically speaking, a supermajority of these people are getting on welfare and using welfare at a rate higher than the domestic population, and they're also, when they become citizens and vote, statistically speaking, in supermajority numbers, they're voting to increase the state, increase the welfare state, and restrict gun rights. And I'll point that out to people, and they'll say, well, so what? We should just rip it open anyway. And the way I look at it is, dismantling government's like dismantling a bomb. And you pull the wrong wire out at the wrong time, the bomb's going to blow up in your face.
Right.
And so do you think that there are libertarians spend too much time fighting amongst themselves on these like hot button issues where even, throughout the history of the Libertarian Party, there's never been unanimous agreement on, and not enough time on the things you're talking about, and on building the issues where libertarians are pretty united on? Like, pretty much every libertarian wants to end the war on drugs.
Right.
They all
want to end the Fed.
Yeah. And pretty much every you're not much of a libertarian if you're not for gun rights. So, and they're wasting all this time on just a bunch of crap and not focusing on building the party, building the movement, getting people elected to local offices and to sheriffs.
And it goes into that culture I was talking about. We've created a culture of failure, so it's become this toxic thing where good faith conversations have broken down, and there's nothing good to really focus on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's going to take very strong leadership to serve as an example, to get people to follow them, get results, more will come, then more results, and on and on and on. It's a cycle. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. And that is why it's so important to me to get Ron Paul supporters there, because that was, in my opinion, the most productive and healthiest that we ever were. There was none of this oh, well, you came from the Democrat Party. Oh, you're a hyphenated anarchist of this party. It just didn't exist. We were all united around the campaign and the message, and we were all working towards it. We were all working together, and we were having the time of our lives doing it.
Yeah, the Ron Paul campaign was the biggest thing I've seen in the liberty movement since I've been involved with it since the 1990s.
But what happened was he got...
It splintered.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the point is the campaign ended.
Mm-hmm. And then the movement splintered. It broke apart.
Energy, that energy never successfully transferred anywhere. It was kind of cool for a little bit. That's when, like, you know, Ben Swan blew up, Adam blew up, Free Thought blew up. All these different things started coming up, but they were based on platforms and people are flawed and principles are not. So some came and went and failed, and you got debates started turning into fights, and that good faith started going away because there's no results. We're getting our ass kicked politically all the time. So, you know, that all broke down.
And the LP at the top of the presidential ticket was not really putting out a very strong message.
Exactly.
So it was perceived that the Libertarian Party sold out.
So my point is if we can focus what we had in the Ron Paul campaign into an organization instead of just a single campaign, like the LP, the campaign never ends.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it never ends, and there's a self-perpetuating cycle of energy and results and growth and excitement and all that. You know
the Libertarian Party could be like a nexus point, like you're talking about the cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
The Libertarian Party should be a nexus point for freedom and kind of like the tip of the spear going after the state. But anyway, now before we go here, I was talking about the deputizing plan earlier, and I had sent out an email to some of the people on my email list, and somebody wrote me back, and they wanted me to give you this primer on the deputizing plan. So I told them that I would. So there it is for those of you out there who told me this to do this. Here it is. I kept my word, and I'm giving it to him. So this is something you can read about the deputizing plan. And anyway, you have any closing statements? Maybe you might want to give out the website for the Mises Caucus?
Sure, it's lpmisescaucus.com. We are recruiting delegates. We're recruiting state team organizers. We are recruiting candidates. We're giving out endorsements, doing interviews, trying to create content. We're all over the place. And for people who, I wouldn't underestimate us. We've grown very, very quickly, very large, very quickly. And we've gotten the support of some of the most popular personalities we've gotten both in and out of the party. And, you know, we have a vision. And we're not afraid to crack some eggs to make it happen. You know, like I said, we have to make a decision on what kind of party we're going to run, what kind of campaign we're going to run. I feel the one that is in place is failed. So the people who stand by it at present don't really care what you think. We're here to change it, and I'm not here to be friends with you, and neither are any of us. We want changes. We want to fight the state. We're done with this bullshit. So we have to unfortunately, we're going to have to clear the base.
But you're not out to create enemies. I mean, unless it's the state. But you know what I'm saying? I mean,
well, I'm not out to create enemies, but the fact of the matter is it is politics, and people are going to play dirty political
tricks. It's a contact
tricks.
sport, kind of.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So, you know, we're going to pursue our agenda, and they're going to pursue theirs, and the best agenda is going to win.
Yeah. Well, it should be a very interesting convention coming up, and the Mises Caucus. What's the website?
lpmisescaucus.com.
Okay, so visit lpmisescaucus.com, and it's been really good talking to you, and I wish you success.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Thanks.
Take human action.
Yep. All right.